What are signs of child abuse and neglect? Signs that we look out for with child abuse and neglect typically are when there's changes in the child's behavior at home, at school, with their peers. Some of the things that we also look out for is if they maybe have some medical things going on that they haven't brought to the attention of parents, caregivers. Even small things we're kind of keeping an eye out for. We hear from the school or from caregivers that they are having learning problems and difficulties, thinking about like problems concentrating, thinking about those things that might not be attributed to an actual learning disorder that's been diagnosed. We always want to be watchful, or the kids always being watchful, my apologies, as though they're kind of on edge, looking for something bad to happen, or thinking about the other shoe always dropping or going to drop. If they are compliant, too compliant, that it's not their typical norm, if they're overly passive or withdrawn and isolated. If children come to school or other activities really early, if they're staying really late, where they're kind of saying like, I don't want to go home, and they start having some of those big behaviors of going home or when they're ready to go home. When kids are reluctant to be around specific people, I think that's always something really to be mindful of. If your kiddo is kind of saying like, hey, I don't know how I feel about this person, but their behaviors are saying I'm not feeling so safe around them. If kids are seeming scared, anxious, depressed, withdrawn, aggressive, and we can't really pinpoint why, we want to be cued into them with that. Any changes in eating and sleeping that are not, attributed to the weather or, something else going on, keeping an eye and being mindful of that. If they start showing up dirty or they have a noticeable body odor, can kind of be a sign that they're not wanting to clean themselves or wanting to touch themselves, or really just they're focused elsewhere. If they report nightmares and bedwetting, that kind of falls into too, if they're having sleep problems. And then if they're kind of telling you maybe that the nightmare is related to somebody in particular that they don't feel safe around. Any unexplained injuries, burns, bruises, bites, broken bones, head injuries. I know some of those can be pretty big and scary, but we want to have a general idea. Did you bump into the table, or, how did you kind of get that mark? If they're demonstrating bizarre, overly sophisticated, or unusual sexual knowledge or behaviors, in our program, we talk a lot about private parts, and we do use the anatomical names. But if they're coming in and using maybe some slang language that's not typically used, we kind of look at that as well. And then if they disclose any maltreatment or mistreatment by their caregivers, teachers, anybody, you name it, those are things that we're really looking for. The information I've given, it's not to say that these are all signs and symptoms, and it's not totally inclusive. There's always, can always be another reason for it, but we want to be mindful, really check in with our kiddos and see what's going on. And if you have concerns, you have suspicion, do contact the Oklahoma DHS Child Abuse Reporting Hotline to report that suspicion. Thank you all for watching. Now let's end child abuse.